Welcome to our Monday night shiur, guys. Our shiur should be L'Hatzlachat, Lezivug Agun, to L'Rachman Ben Dina.
Amen.
And Lezera Bar Kayama to our dear cameraman.
Amen.
Gabriel Chai Ben Belea. May you come back with good tidings. And also to our dear friend Gabriel Ben Amir. Zera Bar Kayama, Bezat Hashem Yisrael. Today's a Yom Besorah, Yom Kedusha V'Tahara. This is the oldest shul in Queens we're sitting in right now. This is the oldest shul. The shul was opened in 1952 or something like that. It's in the front. The oldest shul in Queens. And this is the first time in history that the oldest shuls in Queens has a Kitvei Ha'ari HaKadosh.
Wow.
So for a shul that speaks about the Ari so much, to finally get the Kitvei Ha'ari is a big thing. May we use it in good health. The Zchut is Ari HaKadosh Yagen Aleinu.
Amen.
Our 7815 Parsons Boulevard, side entrance. So our shiur tonight, our topic is how to live a long and happy life. And the reason I chose this topic, Gabriel, is because we find something interesting in this week's parasha. When we think, give you an introduction, when we think of very bad averot, the bad ones, what's the worst that comes into your mind? The worst. Murder. Nice one. Murder. Taking another human being's life. What else? What else is really up there? Adultery. Well, Zerotla is inside over there. Let's just give one. Let's just give it one topic. One. Gilui Arayot. It's so bad. Avodah Zarah, idol worship. But the Gemara says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, I'm willing to forgive everything. I'm willing to forgive Avodah Zarah. I'm willing to forgive Shipichut Damim. And I'm willing to forgive Gilui Arayot. But Al Avon Lashon Hara, I'm not willing to forgive. It's very interesting. Because he's the creator of the world. He created this world. There could be no greater Lashon Hara than to do Avodah Zarah. You're basically telling the world he's not the creator. It's not Lashon Hara, it's Motzi Shemra an Hashem. We find, though, that in Avodah Zarah there is a certain tikkun. What's the tikkun of Avodah Zarah?
To destroy them? To bring more people to
When a person does Avodah Zarah, he gets the death penalty. But once he gets the death penalty, he's off the hook. Am I right or wrong?
He's dead.
He's dead. He can't come back again, but he doesn't go to Gehinnom for that. It's off the hook. Today there is no cardinal deaths. But for Lashon Hara, we find something interesting. The Torah in Ki Tetzeh says that a guy marries a woman, a good, nice Jewish girl from a good family. The next morning he wakes up and he says to the people, Lo matzati la betulim. I didn't find that she was a good girl. So the father of the girl, of the Na'ara, proves that she is. How he proves it, I don't know. What happens? The Torah says, because the person did Motzi Shemra on the girl, Lo yuchal shalcha kol yamav. He can never send her for the rest of his life. He can never send her for the rest of his life.
He's married to her.
He's stuck with her.
He's done with her. No, he can't.
Not he's done. He's done with her. He stays with her forever.
Wow. No D word.
No D word. At least on his part. At least on his part. But if she says, listen, I do not want to live with this man, then she could say, Assalamu alaikum. But he can never let her go. He can never.
Even if she doesn't keep all the.
That's it. They're stuck together. Why? Because Hotzi Shemra, he ruined her reputation. He slandered her. There is no tikkun for that. That's the point. There is no tikkun for Motzi Shemra. So when a person does Motzi Shemra, another human being, what happens? There is no tikkun for it. You cannot fix it. There was a very big Rav that spoke about this subject a lot. His name was the Chafetz Chaim. He was a small man, maybe 5'2", 5'3". Very humble man, very humble. He wore a Russian kepka, and one word, he controlled all of Europe. In one word, if he would say a sentence, he would control all the yeshivot in Europe. When he was a young man, he was riding on a train. Back then, they first came out with a train, early 1900s. Actually, it was actually before. But Europe finally got onto the thing. He was riding to one of the places, to one of the yeshivot from Radin in Poland, where he lived, to another place. And on the way, his name was already starting to come out. So he was riding back to Radin, back to his hometown, and he asked, one guy was over there on the train, Jewish guy, he said, where are you going? I'm going to see the Chafetz Chaim, Rav Yisrael HaKohen Meradin. So Meiraku. He says to him, what do you need to see this guy? It's him. He says, what do you need to see him for?
There was no Facebook.
Yeah, there was no Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. He says, what do you need to see this guy for? He's a nobody. He knows nothing. He said, you better watch your mouth, small man. He's the Gdol Hador. He's going to be the Gdol Hador. He said, I'm telling you, you're wasting your time. And he meant it. He had conviction when he said it. He said, you're wasting your time. Go back home. He said to him, if you're going to say one more time such a bad thing against him, I'm going to slap you in the face. He said, don't have to get violent, but Chaval, go back home, go to work, your wife misses you. He takes his hand, gives him one smack on the face. His hat fell off, he almost fell on the floor. At the end he said, I'm not talking to this guy anymore, I can't convince him. He comes off the train, there is a king's welcome for him. Tzaddik ba'la'ir, tzaddik ba'abaita. The guy who slapped him said, who you guys? That small guy over there? He said, that's him. He said, yes, Chafetz Chaim. He comes on him, jumping on him, I'm sorry for him. He's like, what do you want from me? Don't hit me again. I didn't do anything. This was the Chafetz Chaim. He foresaw the world wars. He famously gave a date between the world wars. There was a video that circulated when I was a kid, that there was one living student of the Chafetz Chaim, or the Chafetz Chaim student, or Chaim Volozhin, and he said that after 70 years after World War II, the birth pains of Mashiach will start. There's a famous video of him saying that. And he said, we have a Masoret, we have a tradition. That's what the Chafetz Chaim said. I believe 70 years ended like somewhere 10 years ago, something like that. 2008, when Obama got elected. So the Chafetz Chaim was not a simple man. In his time was the time of the Cantonistim. If anybody knows a little bit about Russian history, the Cantonists, when the Russian Tsar, I believe Alexander, he was a big Rasha, he didn't want to destroy the Jews through converting them. He wanted to destroy them by drafting them. Much like what the Israeli government is trying to do right now with the Yeshivish world. So they would take every Jewish boy 20 years into the army. If the guy would come back, he would come back worse than a communist. He would come back goy gamur. 20 years to be Mishuka inside a Russian klipa. It's not for nothing they call them Russians. Russian, how do you spell Russian in Hebrew? Resh, Shin, Ayin, Rasha. That's how you spell them in Russian. It was 25 years. So this Tsar, Yimach Shemo, he used to take the Cantonistas. Now the problem was, if anybody could have bailed out their kid because he was rich, they would take another Jewish boy to fill up the quota. So bailing out you're saving your son, but the same man, what are you doing? You're ruining another kid's life. So people would go to the Chafetz Chaim and say, bless me that my son will not go to the army. So the Chafetz Chaim would never give a blessing. Never. He would just say very simply, the Pirkei Avot, ethics of our fathers say, any Jew who takes upon himself the yoke of Torah, he is free from the yoke of the government. So if your son will promise to take upon himself the yoke of Torah, I promise you he won't, the Pirkei Avot promises that he won't be subjugated to the government's decrees. One father once came with his son. He could have bailed out his son, but he didn't. Because then another boy would have taken to the army and he would have ruined another kid's life. So he came into the Chafetz Chaim, and Chafetz Chaim told him the same thing. He comes back to him after an hour. He says, Rebbe, I came to you for a bracha. I came to you for a blessing, and what do you tell me? You telling me a passage in the Pirkei Avot? What's wrong with you? I came to you for a bracha. So Chafetz Chaim says, what's wrong with that? I'm better than the rabbis inside the Pirkei Avot. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, Rabbi Meir Bar Lanes, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. I'm better than them. It says that Gemara says when a tzaddik says something, God has to say amen. So say that my son won't be taken to the draft, and Hashem will say amen. Chafetz Chaim famously stroked his beard and he told the boy, the father, he said, the rabbis inside the Pirkei Avot were real rabbis. I'm not sure that I'm a real tzaddik. And he didn't bless him. He didn't bless him. Who's the Chafetz Chaim? We call him Tana Katan. Tana Katan. When the Chafetz Chaim famously tried to move to Eretz Yisrael, his boat couldn't reach the Akko port. They had to turn around. So there was a Mikubal at that time. His name was the Sadeh. Maybe Shaul Chaim Duek Cohen, also a Cohen. The Sadeh HaKadosh, he wrote a Perush on Otzrot Chaim, something that we don't learn in our Shiur because it's very, very deep, according to the Rashash. So we cannot get into it.
We're going to get into it one day?
One day.
Okay, where's the chud, right?
With the Zechut, when we have the Zechut.
Sela,
right. So the Sadeh once told a student, the Chafetz Chaim will never reach the shores of Israel. So he said, why not? He said, because if he reaches Israel, he'll have to belong to a certain political party. And if he's belonging to a certain political party, the Jews that belong to the other party won't accept his teachings. And God wants that in Shamayim, all the Jews will accept his teachings. So he'll never reach Israel. He will never, and he never did.
The Sadeh said that.
The Sadeh said that. The Sadeh himself was a big mikubal in his own right. When he was a younger man, he had an eye ailment. And back then they didn't have very good medicine. And they thought that he would have a stroke because of that. So the doctors told him, we have a very, very dangerous surgery to do, but you have to go to Switzerland. He said, I don't want to go. I don't want to do Bitul Torah. By the time he changed his mind, it was already too late to do the surgery. When they were trying to do something in Eretz Yisrael for him, they blinded him. So instead of having bad eyesight, he had no eyesight for the rest of his life. He was blind. And one time he had gout. He had a very bad gout. And the gout reached And the gout reached his leg. They had to amputate it. The Sadeh. They had to amputate his leg. He's one of the big Pirushim on the Otzrot Chaim. And they didn't have very good anesthetics back then. When a person was knocked out, he was knocked out for like a couple of days. So he told them, don't worry about it. I'm going to think of Torah. You cut off my leg. I won't feel a thing. Don't worry. So they said, are you sure? We're not going to give you any anesthetic. He said, I'm sure. I'm going to start thinking of Torah. Cut off my leg. They were, without, nothing. Zero. He said, I'm just thinking of Torah.
Meditation.
Totally disconnection of the mind over matter. So he was thinking of the Torah. And in the middle of the surgery, they were afraid. So they started to hold him down. So they called a nurse, to hold him down. Once he felt the girl holding him down at the table, right away he jumped from the surgery table and he ran out. Half of his leg was bleeding. They started the amputation. And he had a thing, and he's blind. He's running out. They couldn't catch him. Where did he go? He had a half an hour after the surgery. He didn't cancel his shiur. He was on his way to the class to give a shiur on Otzrot Chaim. And who was the person? He was blind. Who wrote it for him? If not the one and only the great Rabbi Yehuda Ptaya. Rabbi Yehuda Ptaya sat, and he was coming because he came back from Israel 3 times. He sat, he spoke, and he wrote. But when the Sadeh finished his book, he didn't say that Rabbi Yehuda Ptaya helped him. Why? In the middle of the book, he left. He said, I can't help you anymore. Who finished his work? Reb Chaim Sofer, the Kaf HaChaim. If you guys know a little bit of halacha, the great Kaf HaChaim, the Sephardic halachic. He wrote a great Sephardic halachic work called the Kaf HaChaim. He finished his job. The Sadeh said, all of Rabbi Yehuda Ptaya's zechuts go to who? The person who finished the book and not the person who started writing the book. And from here we learn, anybody who starts a mitzvah and doesn't finish it, bar minan. He doesn't get any of the zechuyot. The person who finishes the mitzvah, he gets the zechut of everyone. But we're going off on a tangent. So the Chafetz Chaim, Tana Katan, when he was a young man, when he was an older man, close to his end of his 90s, 93, he passed away, something like that, he once asked famously one of his students to open his mouth. He said, open my mouth. He opened his mouth and he said, count my teeth. He had exactly 32 pearly whites. He said, the guy was afraid to go inside the lion's jaw. He said, how many teeth do I have? 32. He said, you don't find it crazy that I have still all my teeth left in my mouth? He said, this is a mouth that never spoke Lashon Hara in my life. That never said Moti Shemra in his life. Once Rav Chaim Kanievsky, the great Rav of Eretz Yisrael, he's the current Gadol Hador, one of the great Gadol Hadors. His father, all the rabbis of this generation couldn't come to his shoe, to the bottom of his shoe, to his soles. Yes, he survived the Russian army and he was one of the Cantonistim, and they once beat him over Shemirat Shabbat so much, he said, all my Torah came from that beating. The Stipler, he was one of the Cantonistim, they took him to the army, he wasn't saved from the draft. He would famously, one time he kept Shabbat in the army and they caught him. In the Russian army, it's like Rome. If you wouldn't work, you were a no good. There's no such thing taking a break. You're living to work, for the Klipa, of course. So one time the Stipler, he was caught keeping Shabbat. So they told him, you're chayav mita. On their terms. So he said, the only way you could leave, you take the gauntlet. What's the gauntlet? It's something the Greeks made up. That if you want to escape the death penalty, you have to walk between two rows of people. Each one takes the nearest weapon, and they beat the guy at Zov Damo. If he survives it, he stays alive. If not, listen, you chose the worst death. You're dead. Chas v'shalom. And he survived it. They said, I remember every beating that they gave me to my body to keep Shabbat, because he was doing for Shabbat. Now, every time they beat my body, I said, L'Shem Shabbat Kodesh. I will take another one for Shabbat Kodesh. I will take another one for Shabbat Kodesh. And we all know what kind of Russian winters there are. One time, they would take every guy would stand guard in the Russian army. He would wear a huge jacket.
Tuluk.
What did he call them?
Tuluk.
Tuluk? Tuluk. He would wear a tuluk, a very heavy furry jacket. And he told the Russian guy before him, he said, don't put it on the tree. It's muktzeh. I can't take the thing off the tree. The tuluk off the tree. But the Russian guy didn't give two tulups, let's call it. And he left the coat on the tree. He stayed all night on guard without a fur jacket, and he survived. All this for the sake of what? Shemirat Shabbat. So the Stipler, he's the father of Chaim Kanievsky. He's his father. He used to smoke cigarettes, the Stipler. So when the research came out that smoking was detrimental to your health, they told him, you're not afraid this is going to do something to you? Why are you smoking? He said, for me, smoking is a mitzvah. So what is this, like a new Torah over here? He said, when I smoke, when I learn Torah, it gives me the power to concentrate even more. So for me, it's a mitzvah. For me, not smoking, not for you. For you, it's an avera. For me, it's bitul Torah. When I say smoking, I don't mean like what AOC and Mahshema V'Zichra is saying. I'm talking about nicotine, right? I'm talking about tobacco. So not what the kids our days think. What those liberals, Sonei Israel, Sonei Yahadut, Sonei Derech HaChaim want to legalize. Not Sonei Chaim. They're not Sonei Torah. They're Sonei Chaim. They're Sonei Chaim. They don't like life. They want everybody to be a couch potato. That's what it's going to do. That's what California is, by the way. They once asked a person in California, what's the worst thing in this world right now? Too much gluten. Only a person who's, it's California. What could you do? What could you say? It's California. They want to turn New York into California. It's not very far now. So back to what we were saying, the stipler. So the stipler needed glasses towards the end of his life, and they asked him, why do you need glasses? Such a tzaddik. There's no kind of thing that ever in your life you saw something that's not good, because you need glasses for one reason. Because if you saw something that's not right, it caused your eyes to be. It's not genetic. These things are just a result of something spiritual. He said once when I was a kid, I was passing by a grocery market that sold newspapers in Yerushalayim, and I peeked through the window and I saw the cover of a newspaper that I wasn't supposed to see. That's why I need glasses. That's who the stipler was. Same thing with the Chafetz Chaim. There's no kind of thing a person loses his teeth. You lost your teeth, you have problems with the dentist, you have problems with your gums only for one reason. Because you spoke Lashon Hara and Motzi Shemer. And there is a very big machloket. We said at the beginning of our shiur, Gabriel, that Lashon Hara has no tikkun. No tikkun. You can't have a tikkun. Hashem said, I could forgive anything but Lashon Hara, and it's simple. Hashem could forgive anything you do to him, but he cannot forgive anything you do to your fellow. So when the person says Lashon Hara, now I want to do teshuvah. En davar ha'omed lifnei teshuvah. Nothing stands in the face of teshuvah. Nothing. Teshuvah is a time machine. Teshuvah. So the Chafetz Chaim said, to do teshuvah and Lashon Hara, I have to go to the person who I slandered, and I have to tell him, sir, I said so and so about you. I regret what I did, and I beg for your forgiveness. Just like I would do when I talk to God, when I say sorry for doing so and so. The good thing with Hashem, why did Hashem do that he's invisible? Did you ever wonder why is he invisible? Because if he wasn't invisible, you would never even, you would never find your tongue to say sorry. You could never do teshuvah. And God already made a deal with teshuvah 2,000 years before the world was created, that I will only create the world b'zchut teshuvah. So if God was actually visible, if such a thing is possible, that's why Moshe Rabbeinu, one small mistake, he couldn't even do teshuvah. Ve'et chanan el Hashem, he was praying to God. God said, you can't do teshuvah for what you did. Because you know me, it's impossible. When a person, Chafetz Chaim said, the same thing you have to deal with your fellow. If you said Lashon Hara about somebody, you have to go to that person and tell him what you did and ask him sorry. Now, could you imagine going to a guy you said Lashon Hara about and say, I told my friend once about you that you're drunk and you're this and you're a smoker and you're always like this and you're cheap and his kids is not so good. Can I tell you guys a small secret about Lashon Hara? I'm telling you guys this. I'm telling you this from personal experience. You can ask my wife. Anytime there is one Lashon Hara, you don't get a punishment for it in the next world. You get it straight, direct in this world. Straight, direct. If you say Lashon Hara about someone or something that cannot defend itself, you right away you're going to see that happening to you in your life. Right away. This is mamash like Mashiach. You do the thing, right away you get a ban. If you say Lashon Hara about children, especially about orphans or people without parents, you say Lashon Hara about them, right away Hashem gives you midah keneged midah, and you're going to see the same thing happening to you. Don't ever say Lashon Hara. If there's one thing you're going to come out of this shiur with, it's this. Don't ever say Lashon Hara about children. Ever. Because Hashem is the one that's their guardian. You don't want to mess with that. Hashem right away gives you the nikama. Don't ever say Lashon Hara about children. So the Chafetz Chaim said to do teshuvah and Lashon Hara, it's pretty tough. You're going to do that? You're going to go to every person you said Lashon Hara about? So the Chafetz Chaim said, when do you have to go to him and ask him for forgiveness and tell him what you said about him? You can't just say I said Lashon Hara about him. When you got to do that? Only in condition that what you did physically hurt him. He lost a job because of that. He lost a business opportunity because of that. He lost a shidduch because of that. That's why never ever put yourself as a recommendation. What do you call those? Reference of a shidduch. Why? Because you're obligated to say the truth. When somebody calls you up as a reference for the shidduch, they don't want to hear, oh, he's a great guy, or she's a great girl, she's amazing. They don't want to hear that. They know that she's a great guy, he's a great girl. They know the outside facade. What do they want to hear? This guy has minuses. It has issues. Oh, that's why I said don't put yourself as a reference. That's why I said don't ever put yourself as a reference. Because you have to say the truth in this case. And if you say the truth, you're going to be saying Lashon Hara.
So one person says Lashon Hara.
Wait, so the truth is Lashon Hara?
Just state that nothing happened.
Nothing happened. You don't have to tell the guy what you say. You do teshuvah.
Can you say the good things, not the bad things?
Huh? No, because you're lying. The guy is calling you as a reference. Says, I want to know if this shidduch is going to work. He's a great guy, but he's not calling you for that. He wants to know if this guy has issues. That's why he's calling you as a reference. He knows the good things.
If you put your name on the reference, that means
you're going to say good things automatically. No, that's a lie. You're not allowed to do that. It's a lie. You cannot do that. No, it's not a good cause. Because if that person is going to end up with that person, and they're going to see later on, let's say that person this girl can handle anything but somebody that's cheap. Or a person, there are some people that hold a grudge until their burial. You can handle anything but that. And you know this guy, he gives, he's about tzedakah. But if you hurt him one time, he'll forget all the good you did to him in your life, and he'll just cut you off mashorish.
horrible.
That's a disgusting midah.
Rabbi, anybody that gets married should know that person.
If this girl is calling you for a reference, Tzaddik,
issues.
you're too young to be a reference. But for the future, if somebody's calling you and asking you for, I want to know something about this person, tell me, what are they really telling you? Tell me something that I don't know. No. It's Parashat Shlach, Avraham. You know what that means, right? Exactly, that's why I said that. V'asu lahem tzitzit. So what? So I love it.
What's the way out? When you say you don't know, you're lying too.
So what happens if somebody calls you up as a reference and they're really asking you for something that they want to know, and you know something bad about this person? If you're not comfortable with saying anything, don't pick up phone numbers that you don't know who's calling you.
Rabbi, how we just say, if you ask me if my daughter was to date him or he was to date
If
her,
you would ask yourself
I would say no. However,
so the thing is, if you make somebody,
the person you are and say, you know what, I think you should look further into it. Don't struggle,
That's a very beautiful answer. You should look further into it. Maybe I'm not the right person to ask. What I know about him is good stuff, but maybe
100%. I would say if it was my kid, I'd say
to the next. But maybe Chas v'Shalom, you could hurt a person's. For example, I'll tell you something. Back in the day, the next generation won't have this issue, obviously. But back in the day, if a person would go on a shidduch in the yeshivish world, in the religious world, that person was known as a smoker, smoking cigarettes, right? That would already be, that guy is a narcoman and he's a this and he's a this. The yeshivish world, yes, it's haram, right? But if a person was known to drink once in a while, to be a happy guy,
It's a Lubavitch.
it's a Lubavitch. It's not the end of the world, right? Now, if a person could call you in the yeshivish world back then, let's say 10 years ago, and say, listen, for my wife and for my daughter, I want to know if this is a good shidduch. And this guy smokes, and for them this is a bad thing. What do you say? He's a great guy, he learns this and that, but he's a smoker. Would that be a right thing to say? Chafetz Chaim says, if it's something that doesn't cause him to be a kofer bi'ikar, you have to not say it. So it's a dangerous, you're on a dangerous slope, because on the one hand, the person would say no once they find out he's a smoker, so you're causing that person hurt. But on the other hand, you can't say something bad against him if he's not a kofer.
They didn't ask you that question.
They didn't ask you that question. You can't slander him. What do you do? It's a very dangerous game. But at the same time, the greatest way to set up people on dates is the shidduch way, through a third party. When a person goes out on a date, not through a third party, you're setting yourself up for a lot of hurt, a lot of anguish.
What do you mean third party?
Shidduch, through a shidduch. If you get,
know.
I don't know you, you don't know me, we're going out. If I don't like you or you don't like me, I'm not the one saying anything.
Agent.
Yeah, we have an agent, we have an agent, we have a manager. That's the best way. That's the best way. That should be, we should bring back that way.
There was no connection. There was nothing.
Huh?
There was no connection.
There's no
nothing's
connection.
attached.
Everything should go, but what's the problem? What happened? Who got all the blame? The Shadchan. The Shadchan got all the blame. So the Shadchan doesn't want to work in this field anymore.
It's not that. It's just the way they say it.
The way the world works, American Idols, love. We want love. I want to ask you a question. A guy that's dating for 2 years, should he get married?
Yes.
Daniel, he's already married. If you're dating for 2 years, wake up and smell the roses. You are married already. The only thing that's left to do is say kiddush and put on a ring. You are married already. There's no such kind of thing as dating for 2 years. There's no such kind of thing as dating for a year. You go out on a date. 1, 2, 3, 4 times. 2 months you go out. That's it. Because what are you getting married for? To know the unknown. If you already know the unknown, why are you getting married? What are you looking for in a marriage? What? You have to figure out the unknown. What's the issue? The Shadchanim. That's why the Shadchan has to know who to set up with who, that they shouldn't fall into Lashon Hara trap. That's why the reference is wrong. The Shadchan is what? He's right. The Shadchan knows this guy matches this girl. Now, on the other hand, Rabbi Yisrael Salanter, the father of the Musar movement, said when a person says Lashon Hara about somebody, he shouldn't go to the person and ask him for forgiveness, even if he made him lose a job, even if he made him lose a shidduch, even if he made him lose the presidency.
Why?
You're not allowed to go and tell him what you did. You're supposed to just say, Vidui, Rav Yisrael Salanter, the father of the Musar movement. Why? Because going to the person and telling him what you said about him will cause even more anguish and hurt. So it's a big machloket, Avraham.
I'm all ears.
It's a big machloket. No, the other Avraham John.
So what's the...
What's the machloket? We saw Salanter versus the Chavetz Chaim. Abotai, what do we gain from this?
silence?
King David said, Mi ha'ish hachafetz chaim. Who is the man who desires life? Ohev yamim lir'ot tov. He likes to see a good life, a satisfying life. Netzor leshonecha mera. Keep your tongue from bad. Usfatecha, and your lips, midabir mirma, from speaking trickery. There is no other part of your body that has more natural enclosures than your mouth. God created to the tongue the palate. First the palate. You have the palate. Then you have the teeth. And then you have the lips. What is Hashem saying? If you can't control the tongue, control the teeth. If you can't control the teeth, control the lips. Just shut it. And you know what the Pirkei Avot says? Avraham. What does the Pirkei Avot say? Avraham ben Raphael and Avraham ben Yosef. Raphael Chai. Slicha. I knew you were going to say that. That's why I said it. What does the Pirkei Avot said? Shimon beno Omer. Shimon, the son of Rabban Gamliel, says, Kol Yamai, Gabriel. Gidalti ben Chachamim. All my life I was raised by the Chachamim. This is a man that was raised by who? The Chachamim.
The Gadol.
Not the regular Chachamim.
Giants.
The real Chachamim. The guys who made halacha.
We work with
Or maggots compared. Kol yamai gidalti ben hachachamim velo matzati laguf tov. I didn't find nothing but for my body something that's good, Gabriel. Ela shtika, but silence. How? We look at our lives, we're Bukharians, right? We're Russians. We grew up in a Russian world, in an American world. To get ahead, what do you have to do? You have to show yourself. You gotta apply yourself. You gotta get ahead. I gotta do this. It comes the Torah and says, stop. I'm telling you just the opposite. I had this conversation yesterday with a certain person. I'm not going to say who. He says, are you crazy? He says, you're in a job. I want to get ahead. I want to raise. I should say something. I should do something. There's a whole story over there. I don't want to get into it. I have to go ahead. There's a story of how he could put another person down for his own personal gain. And I said, no, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't say anything. He says, what do you mean don't say anything? I have to get ahead. If I'm not going to make myself ahead, who's going to put me ahead?
Hashem.
But Shimon Beno says, Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, all my life I was raised by the Chachamim, and I didn't find anything good but what? Shetika. Silence.
So they should learn.
Amazing.
But you know what he says at the end, Gabriel? Lo hamidrash hu ha'ikar. The great thing is not just to give a nice speech. Ela hama'aseh.
Actions.
Don't talk the talk,
Actions
but
speak
walk
louder
the
than
walk.
words.
You have to walk, you have to do action is greater than words. And we see in the Torah, this week's parasha, Parashat Shlach, it's a very cataclysmic parasha. This parasha is an atomic bomb. This parasha will go down in infamy. Not because of the parashat tzitzit. You have Anshe Shem, Gabriel. You know what Anshe Shem means? Men of valor. Kalev ben Yefuneh was one of them. Yehoshua bin Nun. You know how they died? Their tongues got elongated till their belly buttons, and worms started to break forth, protrude into their bodies, and like this until they just decomposed from the inside. Such a horrible death. They didn't even say Lashon Hara about a person. They said Lashon Hara about
The land.
a land. They never said anything against Moshe. Open the parasha, show me. Nothing. Korach said. At least today, if you go somewhere in the desert, put your ear down on the floor, you could hear him. These guys, they created Tisha B'Av. We have Tisha B'Av to thank to them. We round of applause to them. What did they do? That's why Hashem said, Ni ha'isha chafetz chaim. If you want life, nitzor lishon chamera. The Chafetz Chaim says, the one time, the one place you should be careful about this mitzvah more than any other place, with your wife and your family. People think they have a pass to say Lashon Hara to their wives. Honey, what happened today? And suddenly you let it all rip. How was work? Oh, I got to make it interesting. She likes dramas. She likes soap operas. I have to make it interesting. Abotai, Lashon Hara specifically with your wife. Specifically with your family. There's a lot to say about this subject. We have to start the Otzrot Hayim Shiur already. But I want to end this with this one thought, a recap. Mi ha'isha chafetz chaim. King David didn't get punished because he was with Bathsheba. He didn't do any avera over there. I told you guys this many times in my shiurim. He was able to annul the marriage. Every great Beit Din has the power to annul a marriage, and that's what he did. He had no avera over there whatsoever. According to the Gemara, they used to give gets. There was no avera by Bathsheba. And they knew the halacha. There was no avera over there. What was the avera? I'm going to tell you something you guys never heard. King David, swore a pact with his best friend Jonathan, Yonatan. Swore a pact. We will always be friends forever. And Yonatan's father, King Shaul, wanted to kill David. We will always be friends forever, and no matter what happens, who becomes king next, we'll watch out for each other's descendants. When King David's son, R.Shalom, caused a rebellion, slept with his father's 10 concubines in front of all of Israel, and he did a lot of shtuyot, causing all 11 tribes to go against his father, David, when he did that, Yonatan's son, Mephibosheth, stayed in Jerusalem. He didn't go with David when they ran away. He was how you say, impotent? How you say that? He needed a wheelchair. He couldn't move. He couldn't run away with David. He was handicapped, thank you. He was handicapped. He couldn't go with him. He had a slave called Tziva. Tziva, a non-Jewish slave. When David HaMelech won the war at the end, the rebellion, he was able to overcome the rebellion, which is an amazing story within itself. Tziva, who was the slave of Mephibosheth, the son of Jonathan, who David swore a pact with him. He came to David, and he said to David, here is wine, this, that, gifts. David said, where is your master? Jonathan's son, Mephibosheth. He said, oh, he didn't want to leave Jerusalem because he said he'll win out of both cases of the rebellion. Because he's the grandson of the previous king. He said that they're going to kill each other, R.Shalom and David. I'm going to take the throne. David accepted the Lashon Hara. King David accepted the Lashon Hara, and that's why he suffered at the end. Because of that. Because he accepted the Lashon Hara. And he said in his book, when God told him, you made a big mistake for accepting Lashon Hara. You shouldn't have accepted that Lashon Hara, even if it was true, which it wasn't. Even if it was true, you shouldn't have accepted it. What did King David write? He admitted his mistake, and he said, Mi ha'ish hachafetz chaim, who wants life? Nitzor leshonecha mera, usfatecha medaber mima. That's the real reason. And there's much more to say about this. I wanted to say, and with a small thing about Daniel. Ish Chamudot. Daniel was one of the last prophets from the Anshe Knesset Agdola. He saw a vision of 4 animals. The last animal is Rome, which is America. How do we know Rome is a descendant of Esav? When Esav had his kids, one of his kids was called Aluf Magdiel. Look inside Rashi, on the spot he says that's Rome. America is the natural inheritor of Rome. How do we know that? They inherited the legal system of Rome. Yes. The Senate, the Republic, the democracy. They're the inheritors of that. Anybody who knows a little bit about Roman history, which I'm very deep into because it's very connected to Jewish history. Julius Caesar, Mark Antony, Yamach Shemo v'Zichro, who caused the destruction of the second Beit HaMikdash. Cleopatra, everything is connected to Yerushalayim and Herod. It's not the most important thing right now. Maybe we'll make a shiur about that one time. Oh, Marcus Aurelius is, he's one of the earlier ones. So I'm talking about the end already. Julius Caesar and Vesiato. Shemot shel Rishayim mirkabun. So by the Roman, when Daniel saw Rome, he saw an animal that didn't exist with horns in his head. And out of the last horn popped up one horn that took the place of a couple of other horns. And that horn opened up its mouth and started to speak. Pum memalel Rav Ravan. So Rav Chaim Vital writes in his book Etz Hada'atov, which he wrote before he met the Ari HaKadosh. He writes in that book, that's what it's going to happen at the end of days. Islam, which is a nation that speaks Salat, Allah Akbar, and they all think that they believe in God. They pray 5 times a day. They're going to make a pact with Rome, with America, with Edom, and they're going to go up against Eretz Israel. And there's a whole big thing how it plays out in the Pirush of the Malbim, Gabriel, and the Tanakh and Daniel. But what's the interesting part is they're going to get very close to winning. And the reason is, the Mefarshim said, because the last Galut, they're going to use our weapon against us. What's our weapon? Hakol kol Yaakov, vayadayim yedei Esav. The hand is the hand of Esav, but the mouth is the mouth of Yaakov. Islam is going to say we also have a mouth. We also pray. We also learn the Quran. We're learners. The Jewish people can't use that as their weapon anymore. And they're going to come really close to winning until the Zohar HaKadosh in Parshat Vayera says, Hashem is going to say the Jews have one thing that Islam doesn't have. When they do a Brit Milah, they don't do Priyah. Yeah. They don't do the cutting of the membrane. The Jewish people, when they do a Brit, they do the Milah and the Priyah. And that's going to win us the war, the Shemirat HaBrit. So Rabotai, we over here in Kilat Lashem, how could we fix our mouth? Besides for the Lashon Hara, Motzi Shem Ra. There's one other thing we could do, which is a Sigula of Sigulot. Somebody told me this before the Shiur, and I'm compelled to say it because there's no coincidences. Rabotai, if we take upon ourselves this mitzvah, it's a Sigula of Sigulot. Netzor leshoncha me'era, not to speak inside the Bet HaKnesset. Not to say, and especially if you say Lashon Hara in a Bet HaKnesset, the Motzi Shemra in a Bet HaKnesset, people use Bet HaKnessets for gatherings and saying shtuyot, and maybe we're going to make one day a shiur. How come it's a very bad thing to do challah gatherings with all the brachot levat halas that go over there and all the stuff that go over there that's not supposed to be done? Lashon Hara, people say inside the Bet HaKnesset, Netzor leshoncha me'era, rabotai. I know of a sigula. It's an old sigula. I'm going to repeat it to you again. Anybody who takes upon themselves to learn 2 laws of Lashon Hara a day, Gabriel, and to keep it, nothing can stand in his way. Hakol kol Yaakov, vayadai midei Esav. Let's take this upon ourselves, Rabotai, Parshat Shlach. Let's not get another Tisha B'Av this year.
Amen.
Let's get a Beit HaMikdash. Baruch Adonai le'olam, amen, v'amen. Rabbi Hanan ben Shimon,